At the emergency board meeting, my co-founder smirked. "Your 30% stake is now worthless. Pack your things." I smiled and said, "Okay." They had no idea that in exactly 72 hours, when 10 million users logged in, the truth about who really built our platform would be revealed. My name's Kira Liao. I'm 32 years old. The boardroom felt like an operating theater, all glass and cold steel, and I was the one on the table. Graham Silva, our polished CEO, used words like compliance failures and eroding trust, with a practiced sympathy that didn't quite reach his eyes. He smoothed the lapel of his tailored suit, a gesture I'd seen him use 100 times before closing a deal. Across from him, Todd Whitaker, our slick CFO, just watched me, a small, triumphant smile playing on his lips as he steepled his fingers under his chin. They looked like predators who had finally cornered their prey. They told me my 30% stake, the shares I'd bled for through 80-hour weeks and skipped holidays, was now effectively worthless. It was some complicated legal maneuver they assured me was, by the book, a book they'd clearly rewritten in their favor. I didn't say a word. Arguing with a verdict that's already been decided is a waste of breath and dignity. My silence seemed to unnerve them more than any outburst would have. A security guard I didn't recognize, a burly man with a stony face, was waiting by the door. In his hands was a cardboard box holding the few personal items from my desk, a little succulent plant, a programming award I won in college, and my favorite pen. As he escorted me out of the glass tower I'd helped build from the ground up, past the faces of employees I'd hired and mentored, they didn't know. They didn't know their final move was triggering my first. The audit switch was already armed. I sat in a small North Beach cafe, the rich scent of roasting coffee cutting through the sterile shock of the last hour. My hands were wrapped around a warm ceramic mug, trying to stop a tremor I couldn't control. My phone buzzed on the wooden table, a sharp, insistent vibration against the grain. A news alert flashed across the screen. LatticePay co-founder Kira Liao exits amid restructuring. They were already spinning the story, painting me as a casualty of progress. My face felt numb. My first call wasn't to a lawyer or my parents. It was to Priyanka Das, my lead engineer and the only other person alive who truly understood how the real engine of LatticePay worked. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with worry. She confirmed what I already knew. My credentials were deleted, my access to the company's servers and email had been revoked within minutes of me leaving the building. They were trying to scrub every trace of me from the system I'd created. They didn't find the switch, did they? I asked, my own voice sounding distant. Her silence stretched for a few seconds, an eternity. Then, a quiet, firm, "No, the back doors are holding. They don't even know where to look. What are you going to do, Kira?" I took a sip of the now lukewarm coffee. The bitterness grounded me. "I'm going to give our users their receipts," I said, the words solidifying my resolve. Every single one. The cost of their betrayal was already clear in the sanitized headline on my phone. They weren't just taking my company. They were trying to erase me from its history. That was their first and most critical mistake. Priyanka and I set up a secure channel, a hidden digital tunnel, that bypassed their new security protocols. From the relative anonymity of my laptop in the bustling cafe, I could see the ghost of the system I'd built, a faint outline of the architecture only I knew. She started pulling transaction logs, routing them through an anonymous server in another country to hide her tracks. The numbers that began to fill my screen were worse than I'd ever imagined. The so-called convenience fees weren't just pennies added here and there. Compounded over millions of transactions, they added up to a staggering sum. Over $3.5 million skimmed from our users in the last 3 months alone. That was money for groceries, for rent, for medicine. Then we found the smoking gun, a new vendor, Vaughn's Strategic Solutions, receiving 5-figure payments every single week for vague services listed only as consulting. My gut clenched. A quick, encrypted search confirmed my darkest suspicion. Derek Vaughn, the sole owner of the company, was Todd Whitaker's brother-in-law. This wasn't just skimming anymore. It was a carefully constructed family operation, a blatant theft hidden in plain sight. This was the hard proof. They were thieves, not just ambitious opportunists. My anger cooled into a hard, dense certainty. I opened a new, anonymous email client and sent a 2-word message to Marcus Reed, the chair of our board. Check receipts. It was time to put the clock on the table. The 72-hour countdown had officially begun. My burner phone, a cheap flip phone I'd bought for cash weeks ago, rang with a jarring, tinny melody. The screen showed an unknown number. I knew who it was. It was Marcus Reed. He sounded more annoyed than concerned, his voice dripping with the condescension of a man who believed he held all the cards. He didn't ask for my side of the story. He didn't ask what I meant by my email. He just told me to stop playing games and that Graham and Todd had his full and unwavering confidence. Whatever you think you have, Kira, it's not worth burning down the company, he warned, his tone a mix of threat and paternalistic disappointment. There are ways to handle these things quietly. Let's not be emotional. That single word, emotional, was like a splash of ice water. I didn't try to convince him. I didn't plead or threaten back. Men like Marcus don't listen to warnings. They only react to consequences, to things that affect their own bottom line. I let the silence hang for a moment before I spoke, my voice low and even. In 72 hours, 10 million users will get a full, itemized accounting of their money, Marcus. You can watch with them, or you can prepare. I told him, and I ended the call before he could respond. That call flipped the switch in my head. My goal was no longer just to expose them. It was to take my company back and rebuild it from the ashes of their greed. There would be no quiet settlement. No non-disclosure agreement to buy my silence. This had to be loud. This had to be public. I laid out the new plan for Priyanka. This wasn't just about flipping the audit switch anymore. It wasn't just about showing the users the truth. It was about forcing a full reset, a complete takeover. She was nervous. I could hear it in the way she hesitated before speaking. The risks were enormous for both of us. But then she said it. The system we built is being used to hurt people. We have to fix it. Her conviction steadied my own. I went back into the code of the switch, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I added 2 new destinations for the massive data packet it would release. The first was Sam Rivera, an aggressive investigative journalist who specialized in picking apart the shiny promises of fintech companies. He'd know exactly what to do with raw, unfiltered proof of fraud. The second destination was the public intake desk for the California Attorney General's office. Let the state handle the criminal charges. Then, I added one more feature, the one that would change everything. It was a simple, one-click button that would appear on every user's screen alongside their receipt. A button that would allow them to immediately reclaim every single cent that had been skimmed from them, transferring it into a secure, separate, hold-back wallet. This was no longer about my revenge. It was about repair. It was about making things right. I hit save on the code modification. The decision was irreversible. The battlefield had just gotten a whole lot wider. Marcus must have called Graham in a blind panic right after I hung up on him. Less than an hour later, a frantic message from Priyanka popped up on my secure chat. They're initiating a full security sweep. Level 1 diagnostics. The works. They were looking for me. Not me personally, but my digital ghost. My fingerprints. My back doors. Graham and Todd weren't stupid. They were just arrogant. They knew I built the system from the ground up, so they did the only thing they could. They hired an expensive outside firm to audit every line of my code, to hunt for any anomalies, any hidden pathways I might have left for myself. I watched, helpless, as Priyanka worked. She started walling off the audit switch, hiding it behind layers of benign-looking legacy code, bits of the system I'd written years ago that no one ever looked at anymore. It was a digital shell game, but they were systematic. They were cutting off my old access points one by one, methodically sealing the doors to the house I'd built. The system I knew like the back of my hand was rapidly becoming hostile territory. Then, a key server blinked offline. A resource we were counting on to route the final data burst, gone. Wiped clean. They were getting closer. The real blow came a few hours later. A junior engineer on Priyanka's team, a bright kid named Ben, whom I'd personally mentored, caved under the intense pressure of the security audit. He told their consultants about a specific debugging tool I'd built years ago, a master key that had system-wide access. It wasn't malicious. It was for emergencies, a way to fix catastrophic failures. For us, it was our main artery, our clearest path into the heart of the system. Priyanka had no choice. She had to shut it down immediately, severing our best connection before they could use it to trace the signal back to her own terminal. We were running out of ways in. We had lost a crucial piece of our plan. But more than that, it was a personal blow. Ben's betrayal stung more than Graham's or Todd's. Theirs was about greed. His felt like a failure of trust, a sign that the culture I had tried so hard to build was already gone. To make things worse, Graham sent out a company-wide email, which Priyanka forwarded to me. It announced my amicable departure so I could pursue other opportunities. The lies were now official, chiseled into the company's history. The walls were closing in, and the clock was ticking louder than ever. Their security team was good. I had to give them that. They were closing in on the switch's code itself, quarantining the entire server cluster it was hidden on. Priyanka's next message was stark, stripped of any hope. They'll find it in an hour. We're out of time. It's over. My heart sank. We were so close. I stared at the screen, my mind racing through every line of code, every piece of hardware I'd ever touched. Then it hit me. There was one last option. A. Break glass in case of fire. Protocol I'd built into the hardware of a single, aging server scheduled for decommissioning next week. It wasn't a software backdoor. It was a ghost in the machine, a one-time use command embedded in the server's basic programming that could reroute a single, pre-compiled package to a new trigger. The audit switch. But there was a catch. It couldn't be triggered remotely. Priyanka had to physically go to the server room, find the correct machine among hundreds, and connect her laptop directly to a hidden maintenance port on the back to trigger it. The risk was insane. If she got caught by a security guard or a camera, she'd be fired on the spot. Or worse, looped into their fraud investigation as a co-conspirator. It was a desperate final gamble. She did it. I don't know how, but she did it. A single encrypted confirmation message appeared on my screen. Package moved. Trigger automated. The audit switch was now coiled like a snake, set to strike the exact second Graham's launch event livestream began. But her success came at a steep cost. Activating the Ghost protocol, by its very design, severed our last connection. The final back door slammed shut behind her, and we were now completely and utterly blind. We couldn't monitor the system anymore. We couldn't see if their security team found a way to disable the automated trigger. We couldn't do anything but wait and trust the code. The ticking element wasn't a 72-hour countdown anymore. It was a single, precise moment in time. The second Graham Silva stepped on that stage to announce his shiny new feature. All of our moves, all the risks, and the frantic work had led to this. A single, high-risk, all-or-nothing bet placed on a ghost in an old machine. We had one shot to get this right, and the terrifying part was, we wouldn't know if we'd succeeded until the whole world did. The silence that followed was deafening. For 12 hours, there was nothing to do but wait. I sat in the corner of another cafe, nursing the same cup of coffee for hours, watching the company I built celebrate my complete and total erasure. I saw an article pop up on a tech blog, a puff piece, quoting Graham about the new era of efficiency at LatticePay. He was using my work, the very efficiency I had coded into the system, to build his throne. For a moment, the sheer weight of it all hit me. I was one person, alone in a coffee shop, fighting a multi-million-dollar company with a burner phone and a prayer. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe I should have just negotiated a quiet exit, taken what little they were willing to offer, and disappeared with my dignity bruised but intact. The core wound, the feeling of being used, of being seen as a function and not a founder, ached with a raw physical intensity. They had never seen me as a partner. I was just the engineer, the one who made the plumbing work so they could stand in the spotlight. I was about to close my laptop when a new message from Priyanka lit up my screen. It wasn't words. It was a screenshot from a customer support forum. The post from a single mother, a woman named Maya Lopez, who was confused and scared about a series of small, unexplained fees that had made her rent payment late. That was it. That was everything. This wasn't for me anymore. It was for her. That fragile, earned possibility to make things right for the millions of users like Maya was all I had left. I had the launch event live stream open on my laptop, the volume low. Graham walked onto the stage at Pier 27 to a round of enthusiastic applause from investors and tech journalists. He looked flawless, confident, the very picture of a visionary leader. He started talking about a future of seamless, transparent transactions. The irony was so thick, it was almost suffocating. He paced the stage, hitting his key talking points, building up to the big reveal. He announced the new Instant Advance feature, promising users immediate access to their money, a lifeline for those living paycheck to paycheck. Right as he leaned into the microphone, his voice resonating with false sincerity to deliver the final, powerful word of his pitch, trust, the automated trigger fired. Priyanka sent me a one-word message that flashed on my phone screen, now. On the live stream, I saw the huge screen behind Graham flicker. The sleek LatticePay logo dissolved, pixel by pixel, replaced by a simple, clean ledger. His practiced smile froze on his face. In the audience, I could see the glow of hundreds of phones lighting up as people checked their own accounts. A low murmur rippled through the venue, quickly turning into a roar of confusion and outrage. The first tweet from Sam Rivera, the journalist, appeared on my feed, a screenshot of his own LatticePay account, my $2. 99 monthly fee was actually $14.78. Every user is seeing this. #LatticePay receipts. It was happening. Chaos erupted on the live stream. I saw Marcus Reed leap to his feet in the front row, his face pale with horror as he stared at his own phone. I saw Natalie Brooks, the sharp-eyed compliance head from our primary partner bank, stand up, turn her back to the stage, and walk briskly out of the venue while speaking urgently into her phone. I knew exactly what that call was. LatticePay's access to the cash it needed to operate was about to be frozen, solid. The live stream feed flickered and then cut out completely, replaced by a generic event logo. It was over. I slowly closed my laptop, slid a $20 bill under my empty coffee cup, and walked out of the cafe into the cool San Francisco air. I didn't take a cab. I walked the 10 blocks back to the LatticePay office, the city noise a dull hum in the background of my thoughts. The lobby was in absolute chaos, employees huddled in small, panicked groups, phones pressed to their ears. I didn't speak to anyone. I walked straight to the elevator, my security badge still, miraculously, working. I rode it up to the executive floor and walked into the glass-walled boardroom. It was empty. I walked to the head of the long, polished table, sat down in the chair that had always been Graham's, took my favorite pen out of my jacket pocket, and waited for them to arrive. The confrontation was over. It was time for the terms of surrender. The new equilibrium was a boardroom full of panicked, humbled executives. Marcus Reed looked at me not as a disgraced outcast, but as a lifeline, the only person who knew how to put out the 5-alarm fire I had started. My terms were simple, direct, and not negotiable. Graham and Todd were out, effective immediately. Their substantial bonuses and severance packages would be used to fund the first round of user refunds in the holdback wallets. I showed them the new interface, already mocked up by Priyanka's team. A permanent, non-removable transparency ledger would be featured on every user's home screen, showing exactly where every fraction of a cent went. No more hidden fees, ever. I then introduced them, via a video call I patched through to the monitor on the wall, to the first members of the new user council. A small business owner from Oakland named Jamal Carter acted as interim chair. He and the other members, all actual LatticePay users, would have veto power over any new fees or changes to the terms of service. The opening image of me being escorted out of the building was replaced by this. Me at the head of the table, sketching the architecture of a company built on proof, not promises. Allison Drake, the company's general counsel, who had sat silently through the entire meeting, just gave a single, sharp nod and began drafting the paperwork. The fight wasn't just won, the rules of the entire game had just been rewritten. Betrayal can feel like the end of the story, but sometimes it's the beginning of a new one, a better one. If you've ever had to fight back and rewrite the narrative, share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more.